that, I don't know. I was actually...
You don't know what to think. I don't know
what to think. I don't know where it will end.
No.
I really don't. And I actually, going back to what you said, they only 6 months ago, and imagine what has happened in the last 6 months since this, that they have worked out a way that someone in the US thought something, and in London, the person's brain
picked it up,
and they knew it was a yes. It was a simple yes. Or, I don't know. Half of me wants to think, like I was saying before, that something will happen where we lose a bunch of technology, and it's probably happened 100 million years ago, and we get banged back into the year 1000 through to some natural disaster.
Well, you wouldn't want that. What about the plague? We don't want that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fine to advance. I just think we've got to keep. It would be nice to think that we keep our values and the things that we know about one another, that we love each other, that we look after each other. And while I think most of the population do, you do have that fringe lot that think it's okay to go out and kill a whole lot of people. That's all beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned. So,
loosely related to that, in the early days of Australian television, and particularly, what was it, the late 70s, when I remember Paul Hogan and definitely before then, was how did you navigate through all that the men running the show kind of thing? I never
thought about it really. As a matter of fact, that's why I didn't get on all that well with people naturally with my thing about my father. I never got on very well with men in command at all. I just did my show, and then I left when I fancied leaving. And I appeared in Number 96 and various shows over the place. And
did you take your top off in that?
Did a few dramas.
Can I ask? Did I read that?
No, that was on the set. It was a movie I did. The set. I swam in the nude across a pool.
Wow. You know. Well, can I pause you there? I often think how strange that is for an acting blokes. Boom, you can you do your whole thing. But if you're a beautiful woman as yourself, there's a natural thing in film to get the top off.
I didn't get the
top off. Was that a confronting?
I got the lot off.
Gee.
It was the set, but I was underwater.
Okay.
And I did get off with my back to camera. I mean, I really don't think it was that bad. I saw a film quite recently of Nicole Kidman, and she was totally full frontal nude walking down the street of this village and supposed to have lost her mind, and nobody even mentioned it. I don't see anything wrong with nudity. I do find open-mouthed kissing coming at each other like the gropers is quite revolting. I see now in movies they're not doing that quite so much. But to me that would be like kissing a cave. I really don't think that would attract me at all. But then again, that's fashions on movies, and I think some of the intimate scenes, it could almost be pornography. And I think it's unnecessary. The sexiest films I've ever seen don't show anything. They just show the eyes and you imagine what's going through their minds. And I think that's fair enough.
So it sounds like you had a follower base. So, you were voted by the crowd to win this. You got into TV that way. You're sort of answering my own question. Where I'm thinking it's the old days of, I don't know, some TV exec and the casting story of, who is going to be on this TV show, and we've got all these beautiful actresses.
Oh, I wasn't regarded as that. I was just someone that had been voted by the audience, and then this guy I knew negotiated with Channel 10 for me to have this daily show at 12. And then after that, I did all sorts of shows, and then after the furor about me appearing on the set in the nude, there was headlines for months, and I decided to get out, and that's when I bought a farm in Bangalore. and disappeared from the scene. And then I was driving 3.5 hours each way to Queensland Theatre Company, doing leads in plays and doing a bit of television in Brisbane.
Truly?
Yeah.
Hey, what suburb were you in Sydney? It was
Greenwich Point.
That's right, Greenwich. Mm. So from Greenwich to Bangalore. What a change. Had you ever lived in the country before then?
I'd been in the country a lot as a child during the war. Our holidays were to go to agricultural camp and pick potatoes for the war effort. And the adults would get 1 and 6 a day, and the kids would hang around trying to get out of the work. And they were wonderful days because you'd sit around the bonfire at night singing. Everybody sang during the war. In trains, in buses, around the bonfire, we sang all the time. I miss that. I love getting people to join in singing. I think it's beautiful. Doesn't happen so much anymore.
No, my mate is Irish, and he just went back to Dublin, and he hadn't been there for 3 years, and he came back and he said, mate, I went back to my hometown in Cabra, I think it was, and there in the same pub was everyone, the same faces that had been there for 15 years before him.
Singing.
He worked, and they all sang. And at the end of the night, everyone was like singing, you know,
That's right.
And everyone, it just sounds so beautiful, a fireplace and...
Well, the last trip I did to an agricultural camp was when I was 15, and the end of the war... VJ Day, when the Japanese surrendered after the atom bomb. And I went to a pub, and this American serviceman was playing Laura, the first time I'd ever heard it. Laura is the face in the misty night. Beautiful song. First time I'd ever heard it. And then I went out and sat round the fire, and there were Welsh boys who'd come to pick potatoes and do all that. And they sang, I know that my Redeemer liveth, in tight 4-part harmony, under the stars. And the war was over. It was finished. The actual joy of that night will live with me forever.
Yeah. It would never happen now. It would never... There's something in us as Aussie blokes that that's a bit wanky. You know, like a bit... We would think... Where did that go? Where did that go? Well, because there's a certain masculinity about it too, like singing 4-part harmonies.
I think it went because there are very few songs now you can sing along to, you know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, give me a song we could all sing.
Right.
I don't think so.
And perhaps back when it was radio and you got into radio shows, that magic that came over you because you just hear this song and
you lived by the radio in the war, you know. We had all our comedy shows, which was the very reason I got into comedy, because everybody loved a good laugh. The actual Londoners and the way they coped with being bombed, I mean, you wouldn't believe it. We were one family. You'd talk to people on the train or the bus, and the minute the war ended, everything went back to not speaking and, you know, doing it was the strangest thing. I had the war from age 9 till age 15, so that's how I grew up. And I thought, so what's happened now? What are we going to do for excitement now? We can't get into our siren suits and go out to the shelter and have cups of cocoa with the neighbours. You know, for me, it was terrific. I had a wonderful war because I went to art school too. I won a scholarship to art school, and they were the best years of my life.
So forgive my ignorance. Did you actually see any bombing or did... Yeah?
Well, sure. South London was the centre for the V1s. They'd be like a motorbike in the distance. You'd hear... And then it would cut, and you'd go 1, 2... 3, and usually by the time you got to 6, you'd hear this huge explosion. So one day we heard the the siren go, and we went to the surface shelter, which was outside the house. It's a big square shelter, and all the neighbours were there, and my father was outside, and in his typical fashion, he said, "Everybody get down, this is it." And apparently a V1 was coming straight for the shelter.
Can I ask you, is a V1 the bomb or the...
It's the flying bomb.
Okay, with the propeller on the...
No propeller, no. It was a jet.
Yeah, okay.
And it had wings, and it was unmanned plane, but it was a flying bomb.
Did you hear the bombers that dropped those things? Did you
No,
remember planes flying over it?
No, it was just like a little plane.
Wow.
And then it would run out of fuel, and it usually ran out of fuel at South London, and then it would go... And then you'd begin to count, and that's when... And my father saw this one coming straight for the shelter, and I got under the bottom bunk, which was only about 6 inches off the ground. The neighbours had to haul me out from under afterwards. But apparently, and I think my angel was looking after me, the wind just got under the wings, and it just skimmed over the opposite house. Dad said that it missed their roofs by inches and fell into the next street and exploded in the next street. So that took the whole blast.
Unbelievable.
And I remember another time I was with my mother in the house, and we heard this explosion, and I watched the windows go in and out as the blast went. And I said, "Mum," I think I'm a bit scared. And she said, "How dare you say such a thing?" She drew herself up to her 5 feet and said, "Don't ever let me hear you say that again." And I said, "Oh, okay." And that was the only time I remember being even slightly scared.
Right.
It just didn't bother me.
I love hearing this. I often say that about Aussies. Like, we're wild. We haven't had a war that has landed in this...
Well, Darwin did.
Well, Darwin, yeah, but definitely not in southeast Queensland or... So all of us are just like, yeah. And I think that's why, things like music, it's all just sort of throw away. But the minute something will happen to us where we need each other and, we actually need each other and we care for each other all of a sudden and think twice about what we're doing and listening. And
I think that one of my greatest admirations for Australians is they're very forgiving. It doesn't matter what you've done or what you've said to someone. It's okay, mate. They'll be over it. Whereas in England, someone does something, you never speak to them again as long as you live.
Right. That could be because you've got so many.
No, I think
the Welsh are just over the hill or whatever it is.
I just think Aussies have got wonderful natures, and I've always felt at home here from the minute I got off the ship. It's the feeling I got the minute I got off the ship was freedom. There was a total freedom. There was a feeling that anybody could do anything, whereas in England it was very much. Who you were, where you were born, and I was from Londoners from way back, and really not even remotely high class. I was the lowest of the low, if you like, the poor sort of middle class. No, we weren't even middle class. We were poorer people, and so there were definite barriers, even though I won a scholarship to art school and I won a scholarship to the Royal College of Music in Kensington. And they were all very uppish, yes, and all this. And I didn't last long there, and my mother was glad when I gave it up because she was worried. I was travelling on a Saturday morning to go to the Royal College, and there were bombs dropping everywhere. There were V1s, and she was always a bit scared. So she was quite happy I went back to my local teacher who came in for 2 shillings a lesson,
It's incredible. So everyone was putting on a front. No, don't be scared. When your mum said, don't you
yes,
ever.
Well, you just
don't break. Don't.
No, I never did feel frightened. I never did. In fact, I quite enjoyed the war, if I may be allowed to be so, except once when there was a house bombed near my art school, and there was a little dog we pulled out of the wreckage, and he had a splinter of glass in one eye, and we had to take him to the vets, which was free. It was the PDSA. And we took him to the vets, and he had to have this bit of glass taken out of his eye. That's when I became an atheist. I said there can't be a God if dogs are being treated like this. I was an absolute